I was the one who counted the clicks. Nobody else on the dig had the patience for it, and I've come to think patience is the whole story, if you want the truth of what happened under the Val Dunes. The Arden Concordance sent 4 of us out to the sunken archive that season, myself, 2 haulers, and a systems man named Priet, who'd spent more years cracking open derelict hulls than talking to living people. The vault had been buried under red sand for longer than anyone could date with confidence, its roof a lattice of sand glass that let the daylight down in long gold bars, so that even 3 levels underground you could stand in a column of honest sunlight and read a manifest without a torch. That's the kind of site the Concordance liked. Bright enough to work in, old enough to be worth the insurance premium. We found the ward on the second day, seated at the center of the lowest chamber, like something posted there on purpose, and then forgotten by whoever posted it. It was tall, broad through the shoulder in a way no living species I knew built themselves, plated in a metal that had gone the color of a coal ember left too long in ash. Its hands rested open on its knees. Its head was tilted very slightly downward, as though it had been mid-thought when the last light went out of the world above it. Priet took one look and called it exactly what the manual would have called it. Inert Guardian Unit, Precursor Make, Non-Responsive, Structural Mass approximately 400 kilos. He wanted it cut down for parts and shipped in pieces, because pieces were easier to invoice than a whole standing machine nobody could get a maintenance code for. That was the job. Catalog it, strip it, move on to the next chamber before the funding cycle ran out. I asked for 1 day with it first. Priet gave me until dusk, which on the Val Dunes meant a long, generous afternoon, the sand glass roof burning gold above us the whole time. The haulers, a married pair named Dessa and Kor, who'd worked salvage together for 11 seasons, took Priet's side without much thought. To them, a guardian unit was just a heavier kind of crate, and crates didn't earn a person's evening. Kor ran a manifest tag over its shoulder plate, and the little device chirped out a valuation number instead of a name. I didn't argue. There's no arguing someone out of a habit that's fed them for 11 seasons. I just took my kit, sat down in front of the thing, and started working the way I'd been trained to work anything I didn't understand yet, slowly, without assuming I already knew what it was. I ran every scan the kit had, thermal, structural, a resonance sweep that was supposed to tell you whether something was a machine or a corpse. All of it came back the same flat answer: no active power signature, no drive current, nothing you could call alive by any instrument built for the job. By every reading we had, the ward was scrap that happened to be shaped like a person. I didn't believe the readings. I've never been able to say exactly why, except that something in the set of its hands didn't look like a machine that had simply run down. It looked like something waiting. So I did the thing Priet laughed at me for, and put my bare palm flat against its chest plate, over where a heart would sit if it needed one. The metal was cool, and under my palm, so faint I nearly convinced myself I'd imagined it, I felt a click. I held still and counted. 1. A pause exactly as long as the one before it. 2. 3. By the time I reached 7, the click stopped, and 30 seconds later it began again. 7 more, evenly spaced, patient as a held breath let out 1 beat at a time. That isn't what a dead machine does. A discharge cycle is irregular, and it decays. It doesn't reset itself to exactly 7 and start over. I sat with my hand on that chest plate for 4 hours, while the gold light crawled across the floor, and every single cycle came back the same. 7 clicks. A pause. 7 clicks. I told Priet I thought there was something conscious behind the plating, held in some kind of stasis our instruments weren't built to read. He told me the Concordance didn't pay hazard rates for archivists talking to furniture. I told him I wasn't asking for hazard rates. I was asking for 1 more day. He gave me until morning, mostly, I think, because arguing with me cost him more than the extra shift did. Dessa left a spare heat blanket by the chamber door without saying why. Kor left his own hand lamp burning on the ledge above the vault entrance, which was as close as the man came to admitting he wasn't sure I was wrong. I spent that night the way you'd sit with anyone who couldn't answer you but might be listening. I told it where it was, and roughly when, that the Empire or Order or whatever had built it and posted it here was long gone, dust under other dust, and that nobody living remembered the shape of the war it had been left to guard against. I told it the vault was safe now, that whatever it had been keeping watch for had never come, or had come and gone so long ago that even the ruin of it was ruin. I didn't do this because I expected an answer. I did it because 7 patient clicks in the dark seemed to deserve a voice back, and because it costs a person very little to be decent to something that can't ask for decency on its own behalf. Somewhere around the second hour, my own voice started to feel foolish, the way any one-sided conversation does eventually, and I nearly stopped. But every time I paused, the clicks kept coming anyway, patient and unbothered by whether I was talking or not. So I kept talking. I described the sand-glass roof, since I doubted it had seen daylight through its own eyes in longer than I could guess. I described the haulers arguing gently outside about whose turn it was to cook, because ordinary things seemed like the right offering for something that had been alone with extraordinary silence for 4 centuries. Somewhere past the middle of the night, the rhythm changed. The 7th click didn't stop. It kept going. 8, 9, faster now, and I felt something under the plating shift with a soft mechanical sigh, joints that hadn't moved in longer than my whole species had kept written records. The head came up. Not fast. Slow. Careful. The way you'd lift your face after holding it in your hands a long time. Its eyes, if that's the word for the twin apertures that opened along its brow, found me in the dark and held there. It didn't speak in words I could parse. What came instead was a pressure behind my own eyes, gentle, almost apologetic, and then an image, not seen so much as remembered, though it wasn't my memory. A city under a sky the wrong color for any world I'd stood on. A crowd of shapes like the one in front of me, going about ordinary business, tending gardens, arguing over ledgers, none of it the business of war. And underneath all of it, that same 7-beat rhythm, thrumming through the ground like a shared pulse, the way a heartbeat is shared by everyone close enough to press an ear to the same chest. I understood, without being told in any language, that the 7 clicks weren't a diagnostic cycle at all. They were a morning count, the last living rhythm of an entire people, folded down into a single vessel, and kept ticking so that something of them would still be counted, somewhere, by someone, long after the counting stopped mattering to anyone else. It had been waiting 400 years for exactly what I'd done without knowing it. Someone to put a hand against its chest and count until the count meant something again. The image faded. The apertures along its brow dimmed slow, the way a coal dims rather than the way a switch turns off. Its hand came up once, very deliberately, and closed briefly around my wrist, not gripping, just resting there, the weight of it warm now where the plate had been cold all afternoon. Then it let go, and the 7th click came, and this time no 8th followed it. I sat with it until the gold light came back down through the sand-glass roof and made an honest morning out of what had been a very quiet night. My wrist still carried the faint warmth of its grip, long after the metal itself had gone cold again, the way a handshake stays with you after the other hand has already let go and walked off. Pertet wanted to know if it was safe to move. I told him it was done moving, and that whatever the concordance decided to do with the plating, they'd log it as a grave, not as salvage, or they'd do the job without me. We logged it as a grave. I don't know if that made any difference to the 400 years the ward spent waiting, or to whatever it was carrying home in that last long image it gave me before it went still. I only know that some things don't need to be alive by an instrument's definition to have spent a very long time being someone, and that the least any of us can do, when we find one, is put a hand where its heart would be, and count until it stops asking to be counted.